Compound movement versus isolation movement. Which one works better to build muscle? Let's find out. Hey guys, Joey Senna here. So today we're going to talk about isolation versus compound movements for gaining muscle. Now, a lot of you might have heard this term, isolating a muscle versus compound movements, and which one is better for gaining muscle. I recently had a client ask me, hey Joe, this exercise seems to isolate the muscle better than this other pull-up exercise that you're showing me. And I'm like, yeah, that is true. You are isolating that muscle a lot better. However, a compound movement is going to build muscle more effectively. Let's get into why that is in this video today, okay? All right, guys, so starting off, a compound movement by its nature is compound, meaning we're combining different muscle groups together. Two different joints usually we're involving here, okay? So when we're doing a pull-up, as an example, we're going to use the shoulder and the elbow and the wrist, more so the elbow and the shoulder that are flexing and opening, right? So those two joints are active here. Does that make sense? So multi-joint, multi-muscle. Why does this work better than isolating the muscle? We already kind of gave away the answer, right? We already found out the answer. I gave you the cheat code. That's why you're here, is to do the cheat code, right? We're here to learn from the personal trainers who've been doing it for a long time to learn what works best, okay? So why does that work better? Well, simply more is better. In this case, more muscle, more joints, more work being done in a shorter amount of time. It takes the same amount of time to do one rep of, let's say, a lat pull down, which we're going to roll in video here and kind of talk about that a little bit more. It takes the same amount of time to do that as it does to do a pull up. Which one is going to build muscle more? The one that's using more muscle, right? More muscle, more results. It's a little more complicated than that, okay? I think we all kind of know that. It's not as simple as that, but let's explain a little bit better. So a lat pull down, we're isolating the lats here, right? So as we're looking at this video, if I can roll it in here, you can see that we're isolating the muscle. We're doing a pull down. We're pulling the rope down. We're keeping our arms straight. By the way, we're keeping our back straight. We have excellent posture, all this good stuff throughout this movement, right? That's going good. So we're keeping all these things in line. That's allowing our muscle to isolate, okay? As we stabilize our core, as we keep our arms straight, that lat is isolating. Does that make sense? You can see that. We can see the lat actually activating right there. So in effect, yes, we are hitting that muscle. We are targeting that muscle better. Does that make sense? So this is more of a shaping movement. This is more of like we're trying to hit that lower little lat area down there near your hip flexor. If you want to look really sexy on the beach and all that, and you want to wear like a Speedo or something, if you're a man anyway, like a Speedo, that lat will come down right in your oblique. It's freaking gorgeous, all right? I mean, any man should want that in his life. I mean, you don't need it, but it's pretty cool, right? So anyway, that lat comes down into there. That's an isolation movement. So if we're really looking to isolate that muscle, that's what we're doing. So but the point of that is what? We're only working one muscle at a time for the most part. We're isolating that muscle more than the others. So by the very nature, we're using less muscle, less work, less results. Taking a look at the pull-up, again, multi-joint. So you see with the isolation, let me go back. It's just one joint that's moving here. It's the shoulder joint, right? Our elbow's not flexing. So we're not getting the bicep work. We're not getting maybe as much rear delt because we have a different motion in the arms. So, and we're not getting as much maybe traps. We're not getting any trap movement in there, like the lower traps or the rear delts or the rhomboids. All those upper back muscles, as well as the lats and bicep muscles, get worked during the pull-up, right? So I'm getting ahead of myself. But when we're doing that isolation movement, it's just the lat that's mainly getting the work. That's kind of the idea, right? So at the end of the video, I'll kind of show you like some examples of how to structure your workouts when we're talking about these different movements. So the pull-up, let's go to the pull-up now. So more muscle, again, equals more results. Well, let's say more muscle added, right? So multi-joint, multi-muscle. We're pulling up. We're using our back, of course. Anytime you pull, you're using your back. So pulling by that very nature, we're using your back muscles. What muscles are we using? We're using the lower lats. We're using the upper lats. We're using the teres major, which is a little bit above your lat, near your rear deltoid. We're using the rear deltoid. We're using the lower trapezius. We're using the rhomboids, and we're using all these good muscles to pull ourselves up. A little bit of core stabilization in both, okay? A little bit. But just by the very nature, by using all those muscles, we're going to trigger more muscle growth, okay? We're doing more work, more muscles, more effective, right? If you do pull-ups really well, you actually don't have to train your biceps as much from an aesthetic standpoint. You really don't have to train your biceps as hard because you're already getting a lot of work, right? They're assisting in the movement. So it's compound. We're compounding the results, okay? There are also studies, I can find them here and bring them in the video or link them down below that show that these movements, these bigger movements are going to add more muscle than isolating the muscle. Okay, so we have these studies that show that time and time again. Any anecdotal evidence will tell you that. All the great Schwarzeneggers, the Colemans, all those people that added all that freaky muscle over the years, they figured out a long time ago. You really don't need science, but these are science-based if you really want to think about it like that. Isometric is very popular nowadays, so we can add that in there and kind of just show you a couple of baseline studies. I'll probably drop in some NASM studies to show you how that works. So compounding the muscle, again, let's just go back to that. So in this case, we're doing a pull-up. You could also do a bent barbell row. That's probably my favorite compound movement for the back, that and pull-ups, just because they both are multi-joint and multi-muscular. Does that make sense? So along with that, we're triggering, let's get a little more scientific, we're triggering testosterone in your body to release, okay? So these compound movements are going to release more testosterone. A squat is going to release more than a seated leg extension, okay? Or even a lunge. A squat is going to release more, or a deadlift, okay? So these compound movements, a bench press is a compound movement. Now you're seeing a pattern here, bench press, bent row, pull up, squat. These are compound movements. They figured it out. These are the best ones to gain the muscle for you. We're triggering a hormone reaction. It's testosterone that triggers your body to create more muscle, okay? There are some physiological factors and nutritional factors like protein that are just as vital, but testosterone is a driving force behind muscular and somewhat skeletal growth, or density as well. Skeletal density and muscular growth, right? So we're trying to trigger these processes in your body to work better and to assist you in gaining muscle. And so there's also some other factors like rep range, intensity selection, weight selection, things like that are going to impact your results. But compound, by and large, is going to get you a lot bigger muscle growth than isolating. It is important to know what both are, and that's really why we're doing the video. We kind of answered the question right away. You can kind of see what's going on here with both of these movements. So just try to think about this when you're going through your workouts and you're planning your workout. Just kind of know what you're doing with each one. Why are you isolating the muscle here? Why are you doing a compound movement here? Well, now you know. And speaking of that, generally, you want to do the compound movements first. You don't have to, but it's probably a good idea because that's when you're at your strongest. You have the most nervous energy. Your central nervous system is at its most effective in the beginning. That's where you need that for the compound movement. So you can move the most weight so you could get the biggest benefit from it. So you can do the most pull-ups, right? So you can do 15 pull-ups instead of 12 if you're blessed enough to do that, right? So you could do bent barbell rows with heavier weight to get a better result. So generally after, let's say, those two, you would do some isolating movements like a cable row where that's kind of compound as well. Or like a lat pull down, right? That would be isolating movement of the back, okay? So maybe another one would be a rear delt cable fly where you're just moving the shoulder back with some cables. I could probably find some video for that one too in the collection. So that's isolating the rear deltoid. That's part of your back, right? That's another isolating movement that we're doing. So just so you get an idea, you want to start off generally with the compound movements, generally like a pull-up, a row, some sort of compound, even a cable row, honestly, or a T-bar. T-bar is another great one. So those are compound lifts you can do. Generally, you want your isometric movements to supplement those, okay? Supplement those. Now, let's use an example, right? This is just one client, but let's say you're a woman or a different kind of client. Let's use a different kind. Let's say you're a woman, and I run across a lot of potential clients that they want to accentuate certain parts of the body, but they don't want to gain muscle. They don't want to look too big or have wide shoulders, all that kind of thing. That's pretty understandable, right, for a lot of us. So, well, for some clients. So what I would say is you could focus on a lot of isolating movements. That kind of makes sense. So one of those for the glutes would be the ball bridge, or just any kind of bridge, actually, because guess what? There's some hip flexion there as well. So I guess it's kind of compound, but we're more isolating the glutes versus, like, say, a squat or a deadlift or a lunge or things like that. The lunge involves the ankle and knee. The bridge is more like two. You're using the knees and hips, right? Knees and hips. So we're isolating the glutes a little bit more than, say, a squat would, or say a deadlift or a lunge. These are isolating that muscle a lot better, a glute. Or even better would be if you want to really isolate the glute better, would be a cable kickback, right? So if you're doing a cable kickback, it's going to help you isolate the glute even better than a bridge. But again, the bridge is going to build more mass. It's a little more compound. So a bridge is more of a compound movement, or let's just say that for the purposes of this video It's more of that side, right? But it's a little more isolating than, say, a squat or things like that. So anyway, getting back to, if you're a female client, I'm just using it as an example, right? If you're a female client and that's kind of your goal, I've had people come to me that say, well, I want my butt to grow and I want my arms to look better, but I don't want to have wide shoulders. So a lot of that is rep selection, weight selection, but also the type of movements you choose are very important. So for something like that, I recommend a lot of isolation movements. Does that make sense? So I want to isolate those muscles better versus do compound movements that are really going to expand our rib cage and or widen our shoulders, things like that. So just so you have an idea, we've kind of covered, we gave you a couple examples of the back for, let's say, a man. We gave you, for a woman, why you want to isolate possibly the glutes or the arms. There's other ways to isolate the arms, but we're probably not going to get into that today. So we gave you some different examples of why this is different from each other, compound versus isolation. Because I see this all over the internet, like, well, this is better for this, and this is like isolation, this works the lats better than this one. It's like, well, yeah, it does actually. It's more direct, but is it really better? Ask yourself what that means. So ask yourself if you're looking for that definition, if you're looking to accentuate certain parts of your physique, or if you're just looking to build muscle and get that. If you're looking for more of a He-Man body, which I'm kind of more into that as far as like my personal look, I don't mind having a power look. I don't really need to have a sculptured look per se. I'm not look plenty sculptured enough doing all the He-Man stuff I kind of like to do. I kind of like the expanded rib cage, kind of the older school bodybuilding looks. I'm cool with those compound movements for the most part. And I still do the isolation as well. So you could do both. Or like I said, if you're just looking to really accentuate one muscle, do the isolation, see how those go. So if that's your goal, hopefully you got something from this video. And then I'll try to give some examples of the isolation movements of the glutes, the kickbacks, and the bridge. I should have video of that as well. So I hope you guys got something from this. I've been a master trainer for over, on more years than I like to say. So 17 years, I think. No, we're up to 17 years. Yeah, 17 years as a master trainer in ASM. 24-Hour Fitness, I was with them for 12 years. I've been on my own for about 5 or so. So a lot of experience to share with you. Just having fun doing this, giving you some food for thought, things to take in your training with you. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Any other topics you want to check out, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you got from this video, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.